Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about the new movie, The Flash. This movie is directed by Andre Muschietti, who is a director that's well versed in horror films. Now there's been a lot of controversy surrounding this movie in light of Ezra Miller, and even with him being a criminal and kind of a disgusting human being, I was interested in checking this movie out to see if it had any redeemable factors about it. The synopsis is as follows. Worlds collide when the Flash uses his superpowers to travel back in time to change the events of the past. However, when his attempt to save his family inadvertently alters the future, he becomes trapped in a reality in which General Zod has returned, threatening annihilation. So without further ado, let's get into the 6 things that make a movie great. 1. The plot. The plot of this movie follows Barry Allen trying to change his reality. He's already the Flash, but he misses his mom, who was murdered when he was a child, and he misses his dad, who's in prison for allegedly murdering his mom. After an emotional conversation with his dad, Barry decides to run as fast as he can and ends up going back in time. He figures if he changes one little thing about what happened in his childhood, then both his mom and his dad would be alive and in his life. He succeeds, but it causes all sorts of ripple effects, the biggest being that he is stuck in a reality with another version of himself. General Zod comes to destroy the Earth, and Barry Allen 1 and 2 have to try to figure out a way to stop him. Objectively, there's nothing wrong with the plot of this movie, but it definitely could have been done a lot better. Most of this movie is Barry Allen arguing and bickering with another version of himself. And because of that, it makes the plot of this movie just feel bloated and long and boring. There's also a gaping plot hole in this movie that is not necessarily a spoiler, so I feel comfortable sharing it. It seems that all that Barry Allen is trying to do is prevent the murder of his mom and exonerate his father, but he does not care about who murdered his mom. That is never talked about in this movie, and it's never brought to fruition. And to me, that is such a big deal that you can't overlook it. So because of those issues, for me, plot gets a 50-50. 2 is family friendliness. The Flash is rated PG-13. There's a lot of action and violence. There's quite a bit of profanity, including the S word used a lot. You see Barry Allen naked, and it's not just like a quick flash of his backside or something like that. You see everything with his front side conveniently blocked multiple times in one scene. And there are a handful of sexual jokes that Barry makes that feel completely out of place and forced into the movie. And as much as I try to stay objective, it was uncomfortable knowing the kind of person that Ezra Miller is. But the fact that it all felt forced made it even worse. So whatever your feelings are about that whole situation, or even going to watch this movie in general, use your discretion, but for me, family friendliness gets a 50-50. 3 is acting and script. In my opinion, the best acting performance in this movie comes from Barry Allen's mother, played by Maribel Verdú. Personally, I thought her acting performance was the most convincing, the most driven, and well performed. Second to her, Michael Keaton. He's just one of those classic actors that is pretty much a home run every time, and I loved getting to see him on screen. That being said, they weren't on screen that much. And then we arrive at Ezra Miller himself. I do not like Ezra Miller as the Flash. I didn't really like him in Justice League, and after all the issues happened with Ezra Miller, I was really hoping that they would somehow write Grant Gustin in as the Flash in the DC. But they didn't, and they said they're moving forward with Ezra Miller as the Flash. His performance was by far the most annoying thing that I've seen since Bodies. His constant bickering with himself did not have any logic or intelligence in it. It was all just nonsensical garbage that drove the audience insane. Not to mention that, in my opinion, Ezra Miller's voice is actually really annoying. And so for me, the only thing worse than 1 Ezra Miller is 2.
There were also many points in this movie where Ezra Miller just had food or drink dripping off of his face. And I don't know if they thought it was going to be some funny gimmick that the Flash had, but it was disgusting and terrible. And it just further played into me really not liking this interpretation of the Flash, because it pretty much made him look like this unintelligent, perverted slob. And that's not really a superhero that you want to get behind and identify with.
Despite the one woman behind me in the movie theater who wanted to laugh at every single sentence, this movie was not that funny. I laughed maybe twice, and the rest of the theater, besides that woman, did not laugh the entire movie. And the longer this movie went on, the louder that silence got. So for me, acting and script get a huge thumbs down. for his character development. In solo superhero movies like these, back in the day, they used to have character development. And while this movie throws a couple darts at the board having to do with Barry Allen, I did not see or feel really any character development with this character at all, besides an emotional scene at the end. And one of the biggest issues that I had with this movie is that Barry Allen is supposed to be extremely intelligent. And you come to the end of the movie and you're just like, this is not Barry Allen. This is not the Flash. They basically reduced him to just his powers, and barely even that. In fact, I'd say that Michael Keaton's Batman got more character development. I was pretty disappointed with the character development in this movie, so for me it gets a thumbs down. 5 is visuals and CGI. The CGI in this movie has got to be some of the worst CGI that I have ever seen. Every single scene in this movie from the get-go has very, very bad CGI. Did they use all of their budget to keep Ezra Miller out of prison? Because there was no good CGI in this movie. Every single scene that it was in took you out of the movie, and it made even the battle sequences much less satisfying than they could have been. So for me, visuals and CGI get a huge thumbs down. And 6 is rewatchability. The Flash is 2 hours and 24 minutes long, and boy do you feel it. Could it be the terrible CGI? That's one factor. But in my opinion, most of the reason why this movie felt obnoxiously long is because most of this movie was Barry Allen talking to himself with an absolutely terrible script. To the point where most of the film, we just kind of wanted it to end somewhere. And I hope to God that I never have to watch it again. For me, rewatchability gets a huge thumbs down. With all these areas considered, I have to give The Flash a 3 out of 10. The plot of this movie was okay. I laughed a couple times. There was a couple decent but brief acting performances. But this movie was an absolute mess of terrible CGI, an absolutely horrific script paired with 2 bad acting performances coming from the same person, a complete lack of character development, and a real lack of awareness from the director and scriptwriter about real-world Ezra Miller and who Barry Allen is supposed to be. So with all that being said, this movie is terrible and it's not worth going to see in theaters. So don't waste your time or money. Thank you so much for watching. If you've seen The Flash, please let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. As always, I appreciate your love and support, and I'll catch you guys and gals in the next one.